The silence of space surrounded Aurora Base like a cold blanket. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck, watching distant stars twinkle against the black void. The research station orbited far beyond Pluto, farther from Earth than any human had ever lived permanently. For 3 years, Jake had called this place home, and for 3 years, the massive listening arrays had heard nothing but cosmic static. Dr. Lisa Carter rushed into the observation deck, her face flushed with excitement. She carried a data pad that glowed with scrolling numbers and wave patterns. Jake had never seen the quiet scientist move so fast or look so animated. "Captain, you need to see this immediately," Lisa said, breathing hard from her sprint through the station corridors. "We just intercepted something incredible." Jake turned from the window and followed Lisa to the main communications center. The room buzzed with activity as technicians hunched over their workstations. Engineer Kyle Richards looked up from a massive console covered in blinking lights and displays showing complex mathematical patterns. "Sir, this signal came from the Vega system," Kyle said, pointing at his screens. "It's definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely not meant for us." Commander Amy Brooks joined them at the console. As Jake's second in command, Amy had a sharp mind for tactical situations and an even sharper instinct for trouble. She studied the data streaming across the monitors with narrowed eyes. "How do you know it's not meant for us?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up a star chart on the main display. A bright line showed the signal's path through space. "Look at the trajectory. The signal originates from Vega and travels in a straight line toward coordinates deep in the Orion Arm. If we hadn't been in exactly the right position at exactly the right time, we never would have intercepted it. It's like overhearing a phone conversation," Kyle added. "We just happened to be listening when their transmission passed through our space." Jake studied the displays. The signal showed clear mathematical structures that could only come from an intelligent source. But mixed within the mathematics were patterns that seemed almost desperate in their repetition. "Have you been able to decode any of it?" he asked. Lisa nodded eagerly. "That's the amazing part. They're using base mathematics as a foundation, just like humans would when trying to communicate with an unknown species. I've been able to identify some basic concepts: numbers, distances, time measurements." She pulled up another screen showing her translation work. "But Captain, there's something else. The signal structure suggests this is a distress call." Amy stepped closer to the display. "What kind of distress?" "The mathematical patterns repeat with increasing urgency," Lisa explained. "And look at this section." She highlighted a portion of the signal. These appear to be star charts showing multiple systems, but several of the coordinate sets are marked with symbols that could indicate destruction or abandonment. Kyle brought up additional data on his console. The signal strength suggests they're broadcasting with enormous power, probably using most of their available energy reserves. Nobody wastes that much power unless the situation is desperate. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled air. "So we're listening to someone's cry for help." "Not just someone," Lisa said quietly. "An entire civilization. Based on the complexity of their mathematics and the sophistication of their transmission methods, we're dealing with a highly advanced species. And they're losing a war," Amy added, studying the tactical implications in the star charts. "Look at these patterns. Multiple systems going dark in sequence. This is what a strategic retreat looks like when you're running out of places to retreat to." Jake walked to the main viewing screen, which now displayed the Vega system 25 light-years away. Somewhere in that distant solar system, an alien species was fighting for survival and calling for help. Their message traveled through the void, hoping to reach allies who might never come. "Who were they trying to contact?" he asked. Lisa brought up another section of the decoded signal. "The destination coordinates point to a region about 40 light-years beyond Vega. If there's another civilization out there, they're much farther from the senders than we are, and this message would take decades to reach them," Kyle realized. Even if these unknown allies received the distress call and responded immediately, any help would arrive far too late. Amy studied the tactical data with growing concern. "Captain, based on the pattern of system losses shown in their star charts, I estimate they have weeks at most, before their civilization is completely overrun." Communications center fell silent except for the steady hum of electronics and the distant vibration of the station's life support systems. Jake stared at the alien signal scrolling across the screens. Somewhere among those numbers and symbols was the voice of a dying species, calling out in the darkness for help that would never arrive in time. We could respond, Lisa said suddenly, breaking the silence. Everyone turned to look at her. I mean, we could send a signal back. Let them know someone heard their call. Kyle shook his head. Doc, even our fastest ships would take 30 years to reach Vega. And that's assuming we had ships capable of interstellar travel ready to launch tomorrow. But we could tell them they're not alone, Lisa insisted. We could let them know that somewhere in the galaxy someone heard their cry for help. Amy considered the implications. Captain, responding to this signal would violate about a dozen regulations. First contact protocols require approval from Earth Command, extensive analysis, diplomatic preparation, all of which would take months, Jake interrupted. And you said they have weeks. He walked back to the console and stared at the alien distress call. The mathematics were beautiful in their complexity, but underneath the elegant equations was raw desperation. A species was dying, and their final act was to reach out across the void, hoping someone, somewhere, would care enough to help. Sir, Kyle said carefully, if we respond, we're committing humanity to a course of action without authorization. Earth Command will not appreciate unauthorized first contact. Jake continued studying the signal. The pattern seemed to pulse with urgency, as if the senders knew time was running out. He thought about the vast emptiness of space and how rare it must be for any species to develop intelligence, technology, and civilization. The universe was destroying something precious, and only humanity was in position to know about it. Prepare a response signal, Jake said finally. Amy stepped forward. Captain, I prepare the signal, Commander. Jake's voice carried the authority of command, but also something deeper. Use our strongest transmitters. Send it toward Vega. Lisa moved to her workstation with excitement and trepidation. What should the message say? Jake looked around the communications center at his small crew, then back at the alien distress call still scrolling across their screens. Tell them this is Aurora Base, representing the human coalition. Tell them we received their distress call. He paused, knowing his next words would change everything. Tell them help is coming. The emergency meeting at Earth Command lasted 18 hours. Admiral Frank Davis sat at the head of a long table surrounded by generals, scientists, and politicians who had been arguing since Jake Morrison's unauthorized message reached Earth. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the alien signal data alongside Morrison's response, creating a timeline that terrified everyone present. Captain Morrison has committed humanity to a promise we cannot keep, General Patricia Wells said, her voice sharp with frustration. Our fastest ships would take 3 decades to reach Vega. These aliens will be extinct long before we arrive. Dr. Ben Clark adjusted his glasses and studied the quantum physics equations covering his tablet. The theoretical physicist had been pulled from his research lab at Cambridge when the crisis began. His wild gray hair and rumpled clothes made him look more like a mad scientist than humanity's last hope. Actually, there might be a way, Ben said quietly, causing the entire room to fall silent. I've been working on theoretical applications of quantum entanglement for faster-than-light travel. The mathematics are sound, but we've never attempted anything on this scale. Admiral Davis leaned forward. Explain it in terms a military officer can understand, Doctor. Ben stood and walked to the display, pulling up his research data. Imagine space as a sheet of paper. Normal travel means moving across the surface from point A to point B. But if you could fold the paper so the points touch, you could step directly from one to the other. And you can fold space? Asked Secretary of Defense Robert Kim. Not exactly, Ben admitted. But we can create quantum tunnels using entangled particles. The problem is power requirements and stability. A ship attempting this journey has roughly a 60% chance of surviving the transit. The room erupted in concerned voices. Admiral Davis raised his hand for silence. How long would this journey take? 2 weeks to reach Vega, Ben replied. But we would need to build completely new ships designed around the quantum drives. The energy requirements would destroy any existing vessel. Lieutenant Sophie Hayes had been sitting quietly in the corner, taking notes for the Flight Command Division. At 28, she was one of the youngest pilots in the Earth fleet, but her test scores and simulation records were legendary. She spoke up for the first time during the meeting. Sir, how many ships could we build with this technology? Ben consulted his calculations. 3, maybe 4 maximum. The quantum materials alone would consume our entire strategic reserves. Admiral Davis stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth's primary shipyard. Construction lights twinkled like stars as workers built humanity's first interstellar fleet around the clock. The original plan called for traditional fusion-powered vessels that would take decades to reach nearby star systems. Now they needed something impossible in just weeks. "Dr. Clark, what are the chances these quantum drives will work at all?" he asked without turning around. "Honestly, I have no idea. The mathematics say it should work, but we're attempting something that has never been done before. We could arrive at Vega in perfect condition, or we could be scattered across several light years as atomic particles." The Secretary of Defense shuffled through papers detailing the military implications. "Admiral, even if these ships reach Vega safely, we're sending them to fight an unknown enemy with unknown capabilities. This could be a suicide mission." Admiral Davis finally turned back to the room. Captain Morrison made a promise on humanity's behalf. "We can debate whether he had the right to do so, but the deed is done. The question now is whether we honor that promise or let an entire civilization die, knowing we could have tried to help." Dr. Clark pulled up ship design schematics on the main display. "We would need volunteers. People who understand they might never return to Earth." Lieutenant Hayes stood up from her chair. "I volunteer." "Lieutenant, you don't even know what you're volunteering for yet," Admiral Davis said. "Sir, with respect, I know enough. An alien species is dying. Captain Morrison promised help would come, and we need pilots willing to risk everything to keep that promise. Count me in." Over the following days, news of the alien distress call spread across Earth despite attempts to keep it classified. Public opinion was divided between those who demanded humanity help the aliens and those who insisted Earth's resources should stay on Earth. Protests filled the streets of major cities while volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. Jake Morrison arrived from Aurora Base to find construction crews working around the clock in the orbital shipyards. 3 vessels unlike anything humanity had ever built were taking shape in the construction bays. The ships looked more like massive engines with small crew compartments attached than traditional spacecraft. Dr. Lisa Carter had accompanied Jake to Earth, bringing all her translation work and communication protocols. She would be essential for any contact with either the aliens who sent the distress call or whatever enemy was destroying them. Commander Amy Brooks reviewed the tactical situation in the Fleet Planning Center. The ships would carry minimal weapons and supplies, with most of their mass dedicated to the quantum drives and life support systems. They would arrive at Vega with whatever they brought from Earth and nothing more. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Davis said when they met in his office, "I want you to understand the situation clearly. These ships represent humanity's most advanced technology and our entire strategic reserve of exotic materials. If this mission fails, we will not be able to attempt another rescue for at least a decade." Jake studied the mission parameters on the Admiral's desk. "Sir, what about the aliens who were supposed to receive the original distress call? The ones 40 light-years beyond Vega? Our analysis suggests they either don't exist or are too far away to matter. You will be on your own out there." The 3 ships received names that reflected humanity's hopes and fears. The Defiance would serve as the command vessel with Jake Morrison as mission commander. The Courage would carry the bulk of their military supplies and tactical equipment. The Hope would serve as the communication ship and backup command vessel if anything happened to the others. Dr. Ben Clark spent the final weeks before launch training the engineering crews on quantum drive operations. The technology was so new that troubleshooting procedures were largely theoretical. If something went wrong during the journey, the crews would need to invent solutions on the spot. Sophie Hayes qualified as lead pilot for the Defiance after setting new records in the simulation pods. The quantum drives would require precise navigation during the spacefolding process, and her reflexes were the best humanity had to offer. On launch day, crowds gathered at viewing areas around the world to watch the ships depart. The vessels looked small and fragile against the vastness of space, carrying humanity's hopes toward a star system most people had never heard of before. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance as Earth fell away behind them. Lisa Carter monitored communication channels for any new signals from Vega. Amy Brooks coordinated with the other ships as they prepared for humanity's first faster-than-light journey. All ships report ready for quantum drive activation, Sophie Hayes announced from the pilot station. Jake looked at the image of Earth on the main screen. wondering if he would ever see his home again. Somewhere 25 light-years away, aliens were dying while waiting for help that might never arrive. "Activate quantum drives," he ordered. "Let's go keep our promise." The quantum drives shut down with a sound like thunder echoing through empty space. Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the Defiant shuddered back into normal reality. The main screen flickered and then showed the Vega system spread out before them, like a battlefield painted in starlight. "All ships report successful transit," Sophie Hayes announced, her voice shaky from the journey. The 2-week trip through folded space had felt like falling through an endless tunnel of twisted light and impossible colors. Dr. Lisa Carter immediately began scanning communication frequencies, while Amy Brooks activated the ship's tactical sensors. What they found made everyone on the bridge fall silent. "Captain," Amy said, her voice tight with concern, "I'm reading massive debris fields throughout the system. These aren't natural formations." The main screen shifted to show the wreckage of what had once been a thriving civilization. Broken space stations drifted like metal graveyards between the planets. The surfaces of 3 worlds showed the scars of orbital bombardment, their cities dark and lifeless. "I'm picking up active signals," Lisa reported. "There are survivors, but the transmissions are getting weaker. Most of them are coming from the 4th planet." Jake studied the tactical display as Amy highlighted the active conflict zones. Ships moved between the planets in formations that suggested ongoing warfare. The larger vessels had angular, predatory designs that radiated menace even at this distance. "Those must be the Devourers," Amy said, pointing at the hostile ships. "And the smaller contacts are probably the locals trying to defend their homeworld." A new signal broke through the static on the communication channels. The voice was strange, with musical tones that rose and fell like singing. But Lisa's translation program had learned enough from the original distress call to provide basic understanding. "Unknown vessels. This is Commander Zethka of the Zephyrian Defense Force. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." Lisa activated the response transmitter. "Commander Zethka, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Defiance. We received your distress call and have come to provide assistance." The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. When the alien voice returned, it carried a note of disbelief that needed no translation. "You received our transmission? But that message was directed toward the Altair Confederation. How did you intercept it?" "We were listening in the right place at the right time," Jake replied. "Commander, what is your current tactical situation?" Another voice joined the conversation, speaking in rapid musical tones that the translation system struggled to process. Lisa worked frantically to improve the communication protocols as more Zephyrian ships appeared on their sensors. "Captain Morrison, this is High Counselor Velna, speaking for the Zephyrian people. You claim to have traveled from another star system to provide aid. What do you want in return?" Jake exchanged glances with Amy and Lisa. The question revealed much about the Zephyrians' experience with other species. "High Counselor, we want nothing except to help. Your distress call indicated your civilization was under attack. We came to provide whatever assistance we can." "Impossible," Velna replied immediately. "No species travels between stars to help strangers without demanding payment or territory or resources. What is your true purpose here?" Before Jake could respond, Amy's tactical board exploded with new contacts. "Captain, we have incoming Devourer ships. Large formation, moving fast toward the planet." The Zephyrian communication suddenly filled with urgent voices speaking over each other. Commander Zethka's voice cut through the chaos. "Human ships, the Devourers, are beginning another assault on our homeworld. Our remaining defense fleet cannot stop them. If you truly came to help, we need assistance now." Jake studied the tactical display. The Devourer force consisted of 12 massive warships, each one larger than all 3 human vessels combined. Their approach vector showed they intended to overwhelm the Zephyrian defenders through sheer firepower. "Sophie, take us toward the planet at full speed," Jake ordered. "Amy, signal the Courage and hope to follow our lead." "Sir," Amy said carefully. "Those Devourer ships outgun us by at least 10 to 1. Our weapons weren't designed for this kind of engagement." "Then we'll have to be smarter than they are," Jake replied. "Lisa, patch me through to all Zephyrian ships." The communication channel crackled with static as Lisa established the link. Jake could hear the sounds of battle in the background as Zephyrian crews prepared for what might be their final fight. "Commander Zethka, this is Captain Morrison. We're going to try something called coordinated strike tactics. Have your ships follow our lead and do exactly what we do." Captain Morrison, your vessels are too small to engage Devourer battleships directly, Zethka protested. We are not going to engage them directly, Jake said with a grim smile. We're going to make them think we are. The Defiance accelerated toward the approaching Devourer fleet with the courage and hope flanking her like escort fighters. The Zephyrian ships, sleek and graceful vessels built for exploration rather than war, struggled to match the aggressive human formation. Amy studied the enemy ships as they grew larger on the main screen. Their formations are textbook perfect. Very rigid, very predictable. They've probably been using the same tactics for centuries. That's what I'm counting on, Jake said. Sophie, when we reach weapons range, execute evasive pattern Delta and target their lead ship. The first exchange of fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Devourer energy beams sliced through the vacuum, where the human ships had been seconds before, while human missiles streaked toward the enemy formation. The Zephyrian vessels followed the human lead, their own weapons adding to the coordinated attack. Commander Zethka's voice came through the communication channel with amazement. Captain Morrison, your tactics are completely unpredictable. The Devourers cannot target you effectively. That's because we fight differently than anyone they've encountered before, Jake replied as the Defiance rolled through another impossible maneuver. Keep following our lead and stay unpredictable. High Counselor Velna's voice joined the tactical frequency. Human vessels, I am monitoring your actions from the Planetary Command Center. Your ships are risking destruction to protect our world. Why would you do this for strangers? Jake guided his ship through another attack run, while Amy coordinated targeting data with the other human vessels. The Devourer formation was beginning to show signs of confusion as their rigid tactics failed against the chaotic human strategy. High Counselor, sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do, Jake said. We made a promise to help, and humans keep their promises. The battle raged for hours as the small human fleet led the Zephyrian defenders in a desperate fight against overwhelming odds. The Devourers had superior firepower and numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such determination to protect others. As the Courage limped away from the battle zone with severe damage, Jake realized this was only the beginning. The Devourers would return with more ships, and humanity would need to teach an entire civilization how to fight a war they never wanted to join. The Hope's quantum drive powered up for the journey back to Earth, while Jake Morrison watched from the Defiance's observation deck. The ship carried detailed battle reports, tactical analysis of Devourer technology, and a desperate request for reinforcements. The 2-week journey home meant Earth would not receive the message for another month. Commander Zethka materialized on the holographic communication display, his alien features showing exhaustion that needed no translation. The Zephyrian military leader had aged years in the past few days as he watched his people learn the harsh realities of warfare. Captain Morrison, our engineers have completed their analysis of the captured Devourer weapon fragments, Zethka reported. The technology is advanced but not beyond our understanding. However, we lack the industrial capacity to produce effective weapons in sufficient quantities, Dr. Lisa. Carter had spent the past week working with Zephyrian scientists to establish better communication protocols and share technological information. Her translation work had revealed disturbing details about the Devourer campaign across this region of space. Captain, the Zephyrians have given me access to their historical databases, Lisa said, joining Jake at the display. The Devourers have destroyed at least 12 civilizations in the past century. They follow the same pattern every time. Overwhelming assault, resource extraction, then complete annihilation of any survivors. Amy Brooks entered the observation deck, carrying a tactical pad loaded with battle analysis. The past few engagements had taught her much about both Zephyrian capabilities and Devourer weaknesses. Sir, I've been studying their attack patterns with the Zephyrian military staff, Amy reported. The Devourers rely entirely on superior firepower and intimidation. They've never encountered an enemy that fights back effectively. Jake studied the tactical data scrolling across Amy's pad. The Devourers used massive formations designed to overwhelm defenders through sheer force. Their ship designs prioritized heavy weapons and thick armor over maneuverability or tactical flexibility. What about their command structure? He asked. Rigid and hierarchical, Amy replied. Take out their command ships and the rest of the fleet becomes significantly less effective. But those command vessels are heavily protected and surrounded by escorts. Engineer Kyle Richards had been working with Zephyrian technical teams to adapt human military concepts to alien technology. His workshop in the Defiance's cargo bay had become a center of innovation, as both species learned from each other. "Captain, you need to see what we've accomplished," Kyle called from his workstation. He gestured to a collection of modified weapons and defensive systems spread across multiple work tables. "The Zephyrians have energy manipulation technology that's centuries ahead of ours," Kyle explained with excitement. "But they never thought to weaponize it effectively. We've been showing them how to modify their tools into military applications." A young Zephyrian engineer named Silra worked alongside Kyle, her forearms moving in complex patterns as she assembled a hybrid device that combined human tactical thinking with Zephyrian energy technology. The result looked unlike anything either species had created independently. "This modification increases weapon effectiveness by 300%, Silra said in accented but clear English. "Your species approaches problems in ways we never considered." High Counselor Velna's image appeared on the main communication screen, her expression showing the strain of leading a civilization at war. The past weeks had transformed the Zephyrian leader from a skeptical diplomat to someone who understood the true cost of survival. "Captain Morrison, I owe you an apology," Velna said. "When you first arrived, I could not believe that any species would risk everything to help strangers. I was wrong about humanity, and that error in judgment nearly cost us everything." Jake activated the response transmitter. "High Counselor, you had no reason to trust us. Your caution was understandable. Perhaps. But your actions have taught us something important about the nature of courage," Velna continued. "My people have always believed that intelligence and technology were the highest achievements of civilization. We never understood that sometimes the willingness to fight for others is more valuable than any scientific advance." The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout both ships. Amy rushed to her tactical station as new contacts appeared on the sensors. The Devourer fleet had returned with reinforcements. "Captain, I count 24 enemy vessels approaching from multiple vectors," Amy announced. "They're using a different formation this time." Commander Zethka's voice crackled through the communication system. "Human ships, the Devourer force is twice the size of their previous attack. Our combined fleet cannot match their firepower." Jake studied the enemy formation on the tactical display. The Devourers had learned from their previous encounters and adapted their strategy. Instead of a single massive formation, they were approaching in smaller groups designed to prevent the coordinated attacks that had proven effective before. "Sophie, signal all ships to implement the new tactical plan we discussed with the Zephyrian commanders," Jake ordered. "It's time to see if our joint training exercises will work in actual combat." The combined human Zephyrian fleet moved into position using formations that would have been impossible weeks earlier. Zephyrian ships had learned to fight with human aggression and unpredictability, while human vessels had been upgraded with Zephyrian energy weapons and defensive systems. Captain Nina Rodriguez led a squadron of modified Zephyrian fighters that had been redesigned using human tactical concepts. The sleek vessels darted between the larger ships like deadly insects, their hybrid weapon systems crackling with energy that could penetrate Devourer armor. "All squadrons report ready for coordinated attack," Nina announced over the tactical frequency. "These new fighters handle like nothing I've ever flown before." Engineer Tony Walsh had worked around the clock to create weapon systems that combined the best aspects of both technologies. His modifications allowed Zephyrian energy weapons to fire human-designed projectiles, creating devastating effects that neither species could achieve alone. "Weapon systems show optimal performance," Tony reported from the Courage's Weapon Control Center. "The Devourers won't know what hit them." The battle began with coordinated strikes that caught the Devourer fleet completely off guard. Human tactics combined with Zephyrian technology created attack patterns that the enemy had never encountered. Ships that should have been easily destroyed danced through enemy fire while delivering devastating counterattacks. Commander Zethka led his squadron in a maneuver that would have been impossible before human tactical training. The Zephyrian vessels attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, forcing the Devourer ships to split their defensive fire. "This is incredible," Zethra transmitted during a brief lull in the fighting. "My ships are performing combat maneuvers I never thought possible." Your species has taught us to fight like warriors, instead of victims. The battle raged for 6 hours as the combined fleet demonstrated that cooperation between species could create capabilities neither possessed alone. The Devourers found themselves facing an enemy that grew stronger through unity, rather than weaker through division. As the last Devourer ship retreated into deep space, Jake realized they had won more than just a battle. They had proven that different species could work together to achieve something greater than the sum of their parts. Admiral Rachel Cooper's reinforcement fleet arrived in the Vega system, like a metal storm emerging from folded space. 50 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with new armor that combined human engineering with Zephyrian energy shielding technology. The sight of Earth's flag flying alongside Zephyrian symbols on every vessel brought tears to Jake Morrison's eyes. The final battle began at dawn on the Zephyrian homeworld. Devourer Prime Crix had gathered every remaining ship in his fleet for one last assault, determined to complete the destruction that had consumed so many civilizations before. His massive command vessel led over 100 warships toward the planet, in a formation designed to crush all resistance through overwhelming force. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his left arm in a medical brace from the previous battle. Shrapnel from a Devourer weapon had nearly killed him, but he refused to miss the final confrontation. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had learned to fight impossible odds. All human and Zephyrian ships report ready for combat, Amy Brooks announced from her tactical station. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had helped transform a peaceful species into effective warriors. Combined fleet strength is 137 vessels. Dr. Lisa Carter monitored communication channels from across the system. Her translation work had become essential as more alien species began sending messages toward human space. Word was spreading throughout the galaxy about the species that answered distress calls from strangers. "Captain, I'm receiving signals from at least 6 different civilizations," Lisa reported. "They're all asking if the stories about humanity are true. Some are offering alliance. Others are requesting aid against their own enemies." Commander Zeth Ka appeared on the holographic display, his alien features showing determination that needed no translation. The Zephyrian leader had transformed from a defensive coordinator to a skilled military commander through weeks of human tactical training. "Captain Morrison, my ships are in position for the final assault," Zeth Ka reported. "Our people understand that this battle will determine the future of our civilization." High Counselor Velna's image joined the display from the planetary command center. The political leader who had once questioned human motives now served as the voice of a species that had learned the true meaning of courage. "Human and Zephyrian warriors, you fight today not just for our world, but for the principle that civilized species must stand together against those who would destroy civilization itself," Velna announced. "Whatever happens, our people will remember that when darkness threatened to consume us, humanity answered our call." The Devourer fleet advanced in a formation that had crushed dozens of worlds. Crix's command ship towered above the others like a metal mountain, its weapons capable of destroying entire cities with single shots. The alien warlord had never been defeated in a century of conquest. "Target the command ship," Jake ordered as the Defiance led the combined fleet toward the enemy formation. "Everything we've learned about their tactics suggests that taking out their leader will cause the rest to retreat." Admiral Cooper's voice came through the communication system from her flagship. The determination. "All ships, execute attack pattern Morrison Alpha. Show these predators what happens when they threaten peaceful civilizations." The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that some species would fight to the death to protect others. Human ships dove through enemy formations with reckless courage, while Zephyrian vessels provided precise supporting fire. The combination of human aggression and Zephyrian technology created a fighting force unlike anything the Devourers had ever encountered. Captain Nina Rodriguez led her fighter squadrons in attacks that seemed impossible even by human standards. The hybrid fighters moved like living things through the enemy formation, their weapons tearing through Devourer armor that had once seemed invincible. "These ships respond to human tactics better than anything we've ever flown," Nina transmitted during a brief lull in combat. "It's like the Zephyrians designed them to be flown by warriors, even though they never were warriors themselves." Engineer Tony Walsh coordinated weapon systems across the entire fleet, From his position aboard the Courage, his modifications had turned peaceful Zephyrian tools into instruments of war that fought with both human determination and alien precision. All weapon systems performing beyond expectations, Tony reported. The Devourers can't adapt to our hybrid technology fast enough to mount effective countermeasures. The turning point came when Jake led a desperate assault directly at Crix's command ship. The Defiance, supported by 6 Zephyrian cruisers, penetrated the enemy formation through a combination of skill and sacrifice. 2 of the Zephyrian ships were destroyed in the attack, but their crews died knowing they had helped protect their homeworld. Devourer Prime Crix found himself facing an enemy that refused to surrender even when outnumbered. Human ships rammed his escorts when their weapons failed, while Zephyrian vessels used their superior technology to create tactical advantages that human crews exploited with deadly efficiency. "This is impossible," Crix transmitted on an open frequency, his voice filled with disbelief. "Your species fights like madmen. Why do you risk everything for aliens you barely know?" Jake activated the response channel as the Defiance closed to point-blank range with the Devourer command ship. "Because someone had to answer their call for help, and humans don't abandon people who need us." The final exchange of fire lasted only minutes. The combined firepower of human and Zephyrian ships overwhelmed the Devourer defenses, and Crix's command vessel exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The remaining Devourer ships fled into deep space. Their century of conquest finally ended. Dr. Chris Turner arrived with the second wave of reinforcements to study the long-term implications of humanity's first interstellar war. His analysis would help shape Earth's future relationships with alien species throughout the galaxy. Captain Morrison, preliminary studies suggest this conflict has established humanity as a major galactic power, Turner reported from his research vessel. At least 15 civilizations have already requested formal contact with Earth. Ambassador Kate Johnson faced the challenge of establishing diplomatic protocols with species whose understanding of humanity was based entirely on their willingness to fight wars for strangers. Her work would create the foundation for an interstellar alliance built on mutual protection rather than conquest. The Zephyrians are proposing a formal alliance that would share their technology in exchange for human military protection, Johnson announced during the post-battle briefing. They want to build a coalition of species dedicated to answering distress calls throughout this region of space. Jake Morrison stood in the medical bay of the Defiance, recovering from wounds that would prevent him from ever returning to active duty. Through the viewport, he could see construction beginning on a massive deep space communication array designed to monitor distress calls from across the galaxy. "Captain," Lisa Carter said, joining him at the window, "we're receiving transmission requests from over 30 different star systems. Word is spreading that humanity will answer calls for help from anyone who needs assistance." Jake smiled as he watched human and Zephyrian engineers working together to build something that neither species could have created alone. Aurora Base's decision to answer a signal not meant for them had changed the course of galactic history. "Then I guess we better start building more ships," he said. "It sounds like the galaxy has a lot of people who need help."